today's episode of Python Papi. We're back inside our smart contracts project. Let's have a look at what we're going to be going over today. Today I did inform you that we're going to be working inside of our Remix IDE. And we're going to be running some code. So let's get that pulled up so I can let you know what's going on. So first and foremost, remember this code from yesterday. I told you that we're going to try running. This is another pure decorator. This time we're going to try to access the block, not a block, but a global variable here. Let me remove the stuff off the bottom so we can just access just that, and then we'll move on to the rest of what we're going to be doing for today. So let me make sure I copy this and then remove it, so we just have that piece of code there that we're going to be running. Let's get in a compile this and see if it takes. See what happens when we compile it. And see what happens when we try to compile this now. As you can see, we have an error here: state access violation, not allowed to query environment variables and pure functions. So like I did tell you yesterday, that this is a global variable that we're trying to access inside of a pure function, which we can't because pure functions can't read state variables or global variables. Let's get and put the rest of this code back so we can go over what we're going to go over today. Let's get and close that. Let's do some light reading really quickly. Now let's take a look at an example of a view function. Remember that the view functions allow us to read state variables and global variables, unlike the pure. So they're both read only. The differences between the pure and the view is that we can actually read state variables and global variables. Now this function will be called add to count. And again, we will use the arrow to indicate that we want to return. And we will be returning an integer or unsigned integer. And then we will say return x plus self.count. Now here our function is taking the input x and then adding it to the current value of the count. And then we're going to actually go on from there. So let me remove this because this is the a pure decorator. We're working with views now. So we know the pure decorators can't read state or global variables at all, so we don't have to put them there. And let me remove this one. So I could just change the name. I don't have to remove it because if they have the same name, they won't actually populate. So I can do that, and they should be able to run both of them at the same time for us. Because if they both set add to count, then we would run into an error. We still do see add to count because we're both variables. So let me change this to count one, because it's the same name can't be in the same function or two different functions. So let's do it like that. So we're doing the same thing. We're just changing the names of the state variables so they're not running into any conflict. And as you can see, everything compiled correctly. Let's actually go ahead and open this up and deploy it so we can have a look at what the functions look like once deployed. Let's get and open that up. So let's move down some here. And you can see here we have both of them are the same function. So it's don't worry about it showing up twice. So we have add the count here. We're gonna get in hit the drop down. We hit the call, and you can see one. So we added one to our count, and this should do the same thing. Like I said, it's the same thing. We just wrote it two different ways so we can show you. And this is adding to the count of the global variable. So this one is adding to the count or self-doubt count. So we see we started the count starting from 0, and we're going to count to 10, for example. So it's going to start. So you can see here we have our first number 1. This one started the count, and we're going to add the count to our blocks dot timestamp. So this one is going to add 1 to the timestamp. So you can see here, whatever this timestamp was, we just added 1 to it, and now it's one value higher. So that's what that one is there. So this is an example how the view can actually access the state variables and the global variables. And I can actually take this one off and it'll still compile and run because this one is a state variable. So we're going to just use the block variable here. So let me get and delete this and then recompile it to show you that everything is still going to compile correctly. Let's go back here. Let's compile again. And then it should pop up the way we need it to pop up. And as you can see, everything populated the way it's supposed to. We'll go ahead and deploy it. And then we show you that everything still works the same way that it just did. Open that back up. Let's open this back up. As you can see, everything's exactly the same. So yeah. So that's what the view function allows us to, not the function, but the view decorator allows us to do. It actually allows us to read state and global variables, unlike the pure. So when we are attempting to make a change to the function, it's still read only, which means we'll only be able to read the change that's done to the function. We won't be able to deploy it or anything like that, or add it to the transaction. We're just reading it. So yeah, we're reading the modification to the function. So that's what the view allows us to do. It's still read only, but we're actually able to see the modification made, unlike the pure, where the pure won't even let us make any modifications at all to the function. So that's a few examples of the view function as you just saw. So yeah, with that being done, we're gonna move forward now, and I think that was the entire remix versus the remix. That was the entire pure versus view decorator module. So we are gonna move on to the next module now. Like I said, we only had about one or two other modules in between us getting into that new contract that we're building, the Buy Me a Coffee contract. So I think it's another day or two inside of the next module. Maybe I think the next one is even shorter than this one. So we might be out of that one by tomorrow, and then we'll be able to dive right into the Buy Me a Coffee contract that we're building, and then we'll be caught up to speed. But of course, I will keep you posted every step of the way. For now, this is the Python Papi. You guys stay Gucci.